We are at Hacking Hackathons. Is that what this is called?
Yes, so we've got another fun hangout in store for you guys this week, and we're super excited to chat with Noel and Serena and a couple of other people who will be joining us shortly, and Carl and Mark about hacking hackathons.
Yeah, so before we get started, why don't we have everyone sort of introduce themselves? And we can start with Noel. If you could give a sort of a brief introduction.
Sure. So I'm just going to be on mute whenever I'm not talking. But long story short is that 10 years ago I moved to New York City to work in the range of technology and government and politics, and have since been at the forefront of making New York City more digitally participatory. A few years ago, after kind of what started before they were even hack nights or hack days, we had this developer day or a series of developer days that created this little project called Twitter Vote Report, which was the first time that the public was able to incorporate Twitter APIs, hashtags, and native mobile apps. This is back in 2008, so the App Store, the Apple App Store, had just been launched 3 months beforehand. So it was really, really novel to use technology in the context of election protection, which is what Twitter Vote Report did, and that ended up growing and developing this community, which I'm now the co-founder and executive director of, called Beta NYC. And we're the city's civic hackers, and our whole thing is about building government, making government for the people, by the people, and for the 21st century.
Awesome. That sounds great. Could you give me, like, currently, what is an example of a project that your team is working on?
So what we do is that we, hack nights and the context of coming together and building community around hacking. And so we, on a weekly basis, we build a space for people to come together to share their stories and share their experiences around municipal data and government websites and building more or less government for the 21st century or hacking government for the 21st century. And right now there's some really cool activity around last year's New York City taxi trips and fares. Which is a data set that you actually physically have to walk into the TLC's offices in Lower Manhattan, hand over a 200 gig hard drive, and get 50 gigs worth of data to play around with. So we've been kind of visualizing, and the community's been playing around with that data. Another hack that the community's working on is around childcare. The mayor launched an initiative to ensure universal pre-kindergarten coverage for all New Yorkers, and doing so has, there's been a lot of parents have not had all the information that they feel that they need, and so parents within our community have been scraping data sets and combining different data sets and building actual maps, so that way other parents would be able to find appropriate childcare locations and find out pieces of information like if there are any violations, or what's the restaurant inspection score of a childcare center, should they be serving food, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the kind of for good civic projects that Beta NYC tries to tackle through its theory of change, which is not just a hack night, but we do not hackathons, we do hack nights.
Awesome. Very cool. And Serena, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Serena Barhard, and my experience with hackathons is directly with Angel Hack. I was managing strategic partnerships there, putting on hackathons all over the world. But my background is in advertising and marketing, and I just moved to New York actually from San Francisco. So it's the fresh ease into the city. The summer's here. I'm excited to be here. But with hackathons, it's something that's very important to me. After going to all these events, you see hundreds of people get together from different backgrounds, different talent scales, and then in just a weekend, all these amazing projects are put on, and it's always a surprise. You never know going into a hackathon how it's going to be, who you're going to meet, what will be built, and every time it's always phenomenal.
Awesome. Great. And for
Carl, why don't you go
Carl.
ahead and introduce
Yes.
yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Carl. I work here.
It's something that's really important to me. After going to all these events, you see hundreds of people get feedback. What's going on?
No, we just had Adam join, so we'll introduce him in a second. Hi, Adam.
So Carl was introducing himself, and Adam will have you next. We'd love to hear more about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Carl. I work here at Thinkful, and I'm Thinkful's marketing engineer. So I help a lot with the marketing side of Thinkful, the growth side of Thinkful, and also on the engineering side. And I've attended a few hackathons in the past. Last year, I was fortunate to get third place at TechCrunch Disrupt here in New York, and then have won a few other here and there. But yeah, that's mainly it.
Awesome. And Adam, why don't you tell us a bit about how I dragged you to your first hackathon and you not writing a line of code and what you're doing now?
Hey everybody, my name's Adam Mayerson. Yeah, I kind of am adding a perspective of somebody who does not have a tech background but has kind of been involved in a couple hackathons, pretty much just as an interested party, and adding a non-tech perspective, which has actually been really interesting, and I've had some great experiences with it so far. So I'm curious to hear what you guys are talking about today.
Wait, and tell them a little bit more about FitLot and how you ended up at the Super Bowl hackathon. Come on.
Sure. So I'm actually calling in from New Orleans right now, where I run a nonprofit organization called FitLot. It's a group that's working to help neighborhoods find resources to actually plan, build, and program outdoor fitness parks. So the two hackathons that I've been a part of, I had just been kind of a curious member, and one of them was before the Super Bowl was hosted in New Orleans, where they hosted a hackathon to make the city a more visitor-friendly place for tourists. And we had a fantastic experience. Ended up building a mapping system to show all the green space and parks in the city, and won an innovation award by the end of the weekend. Very unexpected. So definitely curious about what's happening in this world and how we continue to be involved.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. And we just got Josh pop in on the screen. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how the hackathon world has, been a part of your life?
Hackathon world, it came to me. I moved to Seattle. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps and started hacking on stuff just for fun. And somebody said, hey, you should really try going to a hackathon. So I signed up for one. It was Sports Hack Day. It was around the time of the Super Bowl. Got on a team, and we built a game, a fully functioning baseball game, which didn't win anything. But then I kind of got hooked, and subsequent hackathons, I won second place at Startup Weekend in Seattle, and then third place, coincidentally, at Angel Hack in Seattle as well. It's great experiences every time. I still keep in touch with a lot of the people that I met. So I think it's kind of one of those things that kind of launched me into web development.
Awesome. Well, we're super stoked to have you all on board. This is going to be an awesome discussion, and we'll let Mark take it away with the first question.
Yeah, so just to kind of frame what we're talking about today, we're talking about hackathons, but a lot of our students here at Thinkful are very new to programming and definitely new to the world of hackathons. And so we'd love to kind of paint a nice picture for them of what it's actually like, what they need to do to prepare themselves, and just get them excited about it. And so I'd love to start with Serena. I know you have experience organizing hackathons. What does a hackathon look like? How is a hackathon structured? What should a student expect walking into a hackathon?
Sure. I actually think hackathons are a great tool for young folks who are just starting out in their realm of learning how to code or design or what have you, because people go to hackathons with the intention to, of course, build something, but also to learn. And in that group format, and what Thinkful does massively is that whole mentorship, right? That whole feedback loop. And you are getting that 10 times over just being at a hackathon. So what you expect, if you walk in, you know, this is assuming it's a weekend type hackathon, walk in Saturday morning, there's breakfast, there's a bunch of people, there's sponsors everywhere. It's a lot of stuff going on. And you know, the first part, you're meeting everyone, and maybe you come in with an idea. Some folks already have that fleshed out, but you also get attendees who are there looking to contribute to someone else's idea. Then teams are formed, and then it's time to hack, and then it's just go time. You know, it depends on what kind of hackathon it is, what kind of project you're deciding to build, who your teammates are, and it's one of those weird things when it comes to a hackathon. It's hard to explain it because each one differs so much depending on so many different factors, really. So I encourage people to go to one regardless, doesn't matter the level that you're coming in on, it's always a learning experience.
That's interesting. So Adam, you mentioned that you have no tech background at all, but you went to a hackathon. Is that?
Yeah, so I went to the New York Hurricane Sandy hackathon that was organized by New York Tech Responds, and Adam has a fantastic background in disaster relief, and so I dragged him along. He's my buddy from boarding school, and he was a little confused as to what hackathons were, but why don't you take it away, Adam, and talk about that experience?
Yeah, so that was actually the first time I had ever heard that word. Was from Laura, and she was like, come on out. All these people are working on recovery projects. There will be something for you to add there. And I was like, I have no idea about programming. I don't code. I don't do anything. She's like, no, really, just come. And I came and just walked around and figured out what people were doing, and kind of was able to plug in where I understood what gaps they had in the programs they were working on, more from a user side. And that was a similar experience with the second hackathon I attended. And that's what I kind of found really interesting, was that there was like a little bit of a gap between the people who really understood how to do the coding and then the folks who understood how the programs were actually going to be implemented and used. And that's kind of like a really interesting space. Yeah.
Was it fun? I mean, did you have fun at your first hackathon?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like total stimulation, just hearing all these fantastic ideas and thinking through the possible implications of them was really exciting. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
And I think the energy is just so, like, you can really feel the energy in the community coming together. You're all there just for the fun of hacking and creating something. And no matter what your level is, it's all about building. And it's also the perfect time to do things that could be a very silly project in the bigger scope of things, but a fun project. And I think that's what hackathons are all about. It's this side of community and fun and technology, where you get to meet new people, and you can be in the zone at times, and then you can be a total goofball at other times. And that mix is very, very unique.
I had a blast. I got the bug for sure on my first time too. I had 2 hackathons in one weekend. One of them was Hurricane Sandy for the New York Tech Responds one. The other one was Toilet Hackers, and their tagline was "Give a shit." And I was like, wow, if you have people coming out on the weekend getting excited and making sanitation sexy, like that to me was the most empowering and fantastic feeling. Was like people care enough, and these are the people who have the tools and the skills to build them, and being a part of it. I walked in saying, wow, I really don't know how to write a lot of code. I can work with developers, but I'm really good at making people internet famous. And so I ended up, kind of helping tell the stories of what these developers were doing, which I think is an awesome space to be in. I'd love to hear more about Josh's first experience too. He went from Thinkful student to hackathon extraordinaire. So I'd love to hear about that journey.
Yeah, I don't know about extraordinaire, but my first hackathon, I was scared. I was really, really nervous. I was new. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, I'm not going to participate. I'm just going to observe, and maybe down the road I'll actually participate in a hackathon. And I was sitting there, and I was shaming myself basically to go talk to people. I said, if you don't do this, if you don't participate, you're probably going to regret it. So I got up and I walked around and I introduced myself and I said, listen, I'm brand new. I know basic coding. And one of the other guys on the team says, don't worry about it. He's like, we can use you no matter what. Turns out he's a senior developer at Yahoo. So he kind of took me under his wing, and I actually drew out the interface, and he taught me, he's like, hey, you know, why don't you, instead of using all of these tags, why don't you condense this and do a div? Or it was just really holding my hand through the whole process and made me feel a lot better. So by the second day of the hackathon, I was much more confident and said, hey, you know, this is something that I could really, you know, get into.
Interesting. No, I want to hear about your hack nights.
Besides the fact that it's the coolest thing ever, and I've been fangirling really hard, and they do city bike stuff.
I mean, you definitely have a big emphasis on community. What skill level does someone need to be to something like your event?
Sure. So, you know, I will say that I started my experience running hackathons, and before they were even called hackathons. You know, the space has evolved over such a long time period that it's a really unique opportunity to any time that you're able to go out and hang out with other people who are passionate about the same thing that you're interested in. And so I think one of the key parts of understanding when you attend a hackathon or a hack night is that you're, you know, like you're walking into a welcoming space. And also understand that there's a good chance that a good number of the people that you're walking into the welcoming space also have some type of social deficiencies. So it doesn't hurt to go ahead and just be a little bit more outgoing than normally what you're doing, and just be a little bit nicer than what you would normally be doing. And I've noticed that just having the mentality, like a positive mentality, is something that will carry forth the entire weekend. They're all uniquely successful or you know, really great opportunities to explore and push the boundaries of oneself. And so in that particular context, you know, dealing with municipal data, which is something that Beta NYC focuses on, is kind of difficult because, you know, these are fairly large data sets that don't have domain experts who are always attending these types of events. And sometimes you're having to do multiple things. So you're having to scrape the data, then you're having to analyze the data. You know, like you're kind of working in the same context that you would do for a hackathon, but you're kind of pacing that out over the course of several months. And so, you know, the hack night itself is kind of like it is a hackathon, but the prize is collective happiness and building tools for civic engagement. And it takes just there's a longer narrative arc. We're not giving you a deadline that you have to be done by a particular time period and that you'll get $10,000. The prize that we're giving you is that you'll be working with a community, and that hopefully at the end of the product, your product will then be used by community groups or government themselves as a demonstration of how they could be building technology moving forward. And all of the hackathons that I've seen, whether it's National Day of Civic Hacking or Toilet Hackers or a few others, they're all building like examples, really good examples to kind of move the idea forward. And that's another thing to keep focused on at a hackathon, is to, you know, you're prototyping something. You're not going to necessarily have a business at the end of the day.
Awesome.
They're not all time hops, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, just for you guys who, just to give you a heads up, Foursquare did a hackathon, and Time Hop emerged as a result of it, and now I think they're number 33 in the App Store, and go Jonathan. But we had an interesting question. I'm curious, Noel, how did you decide to switch it to that format? How did you decide hack night versus, you know, weekends, and kind of continuing the conversation? That's a really cool answer.
So in Chicago, so Beta NYC is part of an international network of community groups that are taking a look at improving government technology or building civic interfaces. And so our brothers and sisters in Chicago pioneered their idea because they were in a similar situation. Actually, there was a bunch of developers and designers that wanted to build a clubhouse, more or less, and they were tired. They saw that hackathons were too infrequent, and that it logistically took too much to operate. So instead, they just started hanging out on a consistent. It was every Tuesday, I believe, and they started this program of consistency and just coming together, grabbing beers and wine and food, and talking about these different issues, and still embracing the spirit of a hackathon, but having it on a weekly basis. And that's kind of something that Code for America picked up, and their brigade program picked up, and now all brigades are kind of challenged to form a hack night nationally, internationally, to essentially get citizens involved in hacking.
Awesome. Cool.
Adam, I know that you said that you have to jump off soon, so we appreciate your time, but I'd love to know kind of what piece of advice would you give somebody who's a newbie and a little bit apprehensive about going out there?
I'd probably say that it's all about figuring out where you kind of fit into the puzzle, and where you add value to a certain project. And I like the notion that hackathons aren't just for coders, but there's room for all different types of perspectives. And that's kind of what I've learned just through my small handful of experiences. And it's really interesting to see how people take those projects and bring them to application.
I mean, I think that's such a valid point where at a hackathon, there's so little time and so much to do. And where no matter what your expertise level is, there's always one area for you to impact and have fun and learn at the same time. It's just understanding where you fit in a given project or in a given group, and then just focusing on that, and then at the same time expanding your horizon by talking to people who are doing things that are new to you and different. It's that's a perfect time to explore.
Yeah, it's interesting down here in New Orleans. From what I understand, is that we don't have nearly enough coders for these types of nights. We have a good small community of them, but there's often times where there's too many thinkers and not enough coders. So you guys need to send some people down here to help us out.
Or we can do virtual hackathons, so we can kind of share a program and do things on the interwebs.
They'll probably be into that.
Cool.
Or send them off to public labs, where you can actually just do citizen science and do some physical hacking instead of software hacking.
Yep.
Let's go with that.
You guys, I'm sorry I have to run, but good luck and keep me in the loop.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam.
Bye.
What about Josh? How did you overcome that first hurdle? How would you help out the newbies to kind of figure out how they can find their Yahoo guy to take them under their wing?
Well, the way I did it was just kind of putting myself out there. The worst thing that can happen is either there's too many people for a team, or really that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
Even if you can't write a single line of HTML, maybe you're a good speaker, right? So you're a presenter at the end of the hackathon, right? Maybe you can present the product, right? Or maybe you're just really awesome at getting snacks and sodas.
Or you can do research, right? Depending on the product, you can do market research and try to do the idea.
Things like a startup weekend are much more wholesome in the hackathon sphere. So a lot of times we'll send out half of the team to go out in the street and do market validation. You know what I mean? So regardless of what your skill level is or how new you are, there's something you can do at a hackathon. The worst thing you can do is just sit there and observe, because then you're not getting better at anything.
Well, that's a perfect segue. So one of our questions that I'd love to kind of float out there to you guys is, in the interest of what we do here at Thinkful, it's all about education and getting people to, become a part of developer culture and understand what it is. If you were going to create a hackathon that was geared towards beginners, kind of how would you go about it? And do you think that would be something that you'd be interested in?
I think one of the things that I noticed with all the hackathons that we've done is you get a range of folks, and helping, younger developers. I think having more experienced developers there is also a good factor, because everybody comes up to a hackathon hyper focused. So whatever skill set you have to cut out the fluff. You have 24 hours, so people are very to the point. Like, people are polite, like they realize what you bring to the table, and it's just you're solving a problem. So I feel like a hackathon catered to young, like, developers that are just starting out, to have mentorship from those that are more experienced, because people at hackathons are very used to folks asking questions all the time, and that's fine. Like, that's the whole point. You're there to learn, so it's not a problem to come there as an early student and work at it. Like, be active, be involved. Not just sit back, but for there always to be that communication, because the more communication and the more focused your team is, the more solid of a product of a demo you'll have.
Absolutely, and I feel like one thing that we haven't mentioned is a lot of hackathons have kind of like some form of trainings on site oftentimes.
Workshops.
Exactly, the workshops, and some of them are very technical, like how to use an API. Some are more introductory, and some are even, it might sound silly to somebody who doesn't know how to code, but they're more business focused for all the coders out there. So there's really a wide range, right?
The other thing is, people go to hackathons with different intentions. Some people, with some hackathons, yes, at the end of it, you do have the opportunity to flesh out your idea and maybe build it into a company, right? And some people go with that focus. Some people are going with it to just learn. Some people just go to meet new cool friends and who have their same interests. So, the thing that I geek out with when it comes to hackathons, and I will continue to always be active in that space, is that there's so much that is unknown, and the only thing that comes out of it is constant productivity in several senses.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the unknowns, how many presentations at hackathons have you heard of? Like, well, we had our prototype, and then like everything broke 10 minutes ago, so here's a slideshow, right? And it doesn't matter. It's about having fun and getting out there. It just happens all the time.
So, Serena, at the same time, though, there is a competitive aspect to a lot of hackathons. No?
Of course, yeah.
No, there's different tiers of hackathons. Some of them have massive cash prizes. Some of them don't. So
Salesforce was like $1 million.
Yeah.
So for the ones you organize, what does the competition look like? How is that structured? Who are the judges? What is the component to it?
So typically the prizes range depending on the sponsor. A lot of hackathons will have one big pool, so it'll be like a $10,000 prize for whomever the judges deem as the best hack. But then you will also get micro prizes from the varying sponsors. So Facebook will give, I don't know, like Kindles to the whole team who wins, and PayPal will give, Fitbits or what have you. There's all these micro prizes you can win. The competition is definitely fierce, but it's friendly competition, because I think the focus of why people go is to build and to learn. The prizing aspect is just an extra plus, because remember, at these hackathons, at many of them, hundreds of folks are showing up, and there's a small amount of prizes, but I assure you that everyone leaves a hackathon like, I won something, I've learned something, I've gained value in some way.
Yeah, I would say don't go to a hackathon for the prize. Go there to meet people, to grow your experience, to learn something. That's the real prize that you're going to win at a hackathon. And I know that as an organizer, I've had a few people who have emailed me saying, hey, how many $1,000s are you handing out? And it's like, actually, we're not. We're just going to hand out a certificate for everyone who stays to the end, and have a whole bunch of drinks to hang out. So you come for the community. Don't come for the money.
Awesome. Well, Josh, you have won a hackathon. So aside from the prize of community, what did you win?
Well, I didn't win first place, but I've won, I placed at several of them. I've won Kindle Fires, Nexus 7s, $5,000 once. That was a good one. But I started to get, lack of a better word, I started to gamify the hackathons. First, I just kind of went there to get comfortable and meet people and stuff like that. But I did get a little strategic later on. I definitely did research on like what exactly the hackathon was about. When people give pitches, like, oh, I'm building this, I would kind of like grade them. I would write down each pitch, and I would grade them as like what this one looks like it might be something. You know, this is might be what the judges are looking for. You know, if somebody comes up and says, hey, I want to build a drinking app, you know, there's a good chance that that's probably not going to place in a hackathon that's trying to like help third world countries. You know what I mean? So I've won some great things by just kind of picking and choosing what I thought was really going to be something. And that seems to be a really good approach because it's worked for me several times.
Could you give us an example of some of the apps that you built that have placed?
Sure. So for Sports Hack Day, which was my first one, built a baseball game. For Civic, we helped the city of Seattle, I live in Seattle, build an API so anybody can go in and download city data from Seattle. So Seattle, like now, thanks to the APIs, you can download like city data, population data, and you can, with like D3JS, you make really great visualizations. The other one I did it was kind of a competitor to Zillow, but instead of just real estate listings, people could post histories of their houses, right? So there's a lot of people, especially in Seattle, there's a lot of pride in neighborhoods. So a lot of people know the history of their houses, like 10, 15, 50 years. So we built kind of like a blog listing. So not only could you list your house on the market, but you could post photos of when it was first built. You could post photos of like, hey, my first child was born here, something like that. And that was really good. I enjoyed that one. And Startup Weekend, we built a Kickstarter type application, but for pop-up restaurants. There's a lot of foodies here in Seattle. So we did a thing where up-and-coming chefs or newly graduated chefs from like the Culinary Academy could put this Kickstarter type thing up, and you could fund it, and it would be one day, and you would go to the restaurant and eat and everything, and that was it. That was the event. And that kind of incentivized people to go and support this thing because it was a one-time only event. And Seattle foodies are really, really big on like, oh yes, I went and ate at this place, and they're not going to do it again. So you missed out. That kind of thing. So those are kind of the things I built.
Interesting.
On the things I built one, so the TechCrunch one, when it was basically a way to embed calendars. So it's funny, like it's 2014 and there's no clean and easy way to embed calendars on the web. Like everything out there looks really, really ugly. And so we built a way to just, you could add events to a calendar and then you can easily embed it to any web page. And one of the things, like our angle was the technology underneath it is complicated, but when you look at it, it looks incredibly simple. And so what really helped us land third place at Disrupt was design. So we spent a lot of time polishing the design, and we focused on one feature and made it like really, really, like it just worked perfectly. We had like tons of ideas of things we could do like to extend the project, but we said, no, let's just focus on one thing, design it really well, make the experience be very polished. And I think like that's like my little golden nugget here. Just focus on one thing, because you never have as much time as you think you have at a hackathon. Time just flies by really quickly.
I actually participated in one too. It was in Vancouver where I met Laura.
Ooh.
And that was fun. And that would be an example of I'm not technical. And that was my first time sort of being like, here's an idea, let's do it. And it was awesome. It was really good.
Yeah, we did an internal company hackathon for my previous life when I worked at Hootsuite, and there was some really fun hoop hacks in there. We ended up building a tool called Pulse. It was an internal AMA. So we could ask all the important questions, like why are you choosing green apples instead of red apples, and what inquiring minds wanted to know about Hootsuite, in addition to product and technical stuff. I guess we're kind of nearing the end of our rope, so my question to you guys would be, what do you see as the future of hackathons and hack nights, and kind of what do you want, how can we inspire future people to become a part of it, and how can we make it better? And because hackathons for me are just such a fantastic resource. I see them as problem solving. A lot of times people go in there and they'll explain, like this is the problem, here are the interested parties and the stakeholders, and then they'll kind of build something out. And I'd love to know if you could wave a magic wand, kind of like what your your future dream hackathon or hack night would be, and how we can help you guys get there. So.
I guess to answer that, actually, because I think it's about, if you're non-technical and you have technical friends, like reach out to them and say like, hey, there's this hackathon happening, do you want to come with me? So like one, that makes you feel more comfortable, and like you get to do something fun with your friends. An example of this is on the site I helped run Coder Dojo in New York, and we actually had a group of our kids go to Big App challenges here in New York. And the team was between 8 years old and 12 years old, and the three were presenting. And so like there's no such thing as being too young. And even though Big Apps is not like a hackathon where you hack right there.
Can you tell them what it is for people who don't?
Yeah, so basically you try to solve a problem in your city via code. It is like the simplest way to describe it. And so even though the kids weren't there like hacking at the event, like they just had to present in front of a group of people. And like that experience was just incredibly fun and rewarding for them. Their parents were like crying of happiness because they just got out there, right? So to you and to all of us beginners is just get outside of your bubble, get outside of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to reach out to your friends who have done it before, who are more knowledgeable than you, and just drag them into it, right? It's the best way is just dive head first. That'd be so much fun.
Totally. What about you, Josh?
I think the future is open source projects. Open source is eating the world, which is a good thing. I think in the future, a lot of these hackathons will be, work on this open source project. And engaging young people early. I think in the future there's going to be a lot of youth-oriented type hackathons, which is great, especially for like young girls and stuff. We really need to kind of expand our horizons past just white males. So hopefully the future of hackathons we start branching out and trying to engage, or try and get more diversity in here.
Awesome. What about you, Noel? How are you planning on taking Beta NYC into the future?
So it's really, I think we're already living in the future, and just getting people to understand the value of the hack nights as an opportunity to come and solve their problems. The one thing that we're looking to focus on in the same context that Big Apps kind of gets a community-based organization and to present one problem is that we're looking for kind of community-based organizations that have a much smaller problem that they can bring to a hack night that people can kind of iterate around. Kind of like the fact that, parents need childcare, and how do you build a map so that way you can map that out? Or, another problem that we've been looking at is crashes, which is like when a pedestrian or a cyclist untimely finds its way crashing into a car, or a cyclist hitting a pedestrian, like building maps so that way communities can use that, and trying to find like an ecosystem really, so that way people can be working on passion projects that are open, that the community can work on, and then that can be turned around for community empowerment. And broadly thinking about diversity is a really important thing. But specifically, it is about bringing more people into the conversation, whether it's your friend, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's a colleague from work. It's more fun to do it with somebody else. That's one thing to take away about going to hackathons. And on top of that, it does broaden the community and gets more people interested into the fact that you can do these ad hoc social things with other people and have a good time at it.
I loved that we're already in the future. I was already sold. That was an awesome response, Noel. And what about you, Serena? How do you see?
Well, I think the future of hackathons, I love that we're seeing more and more specific hackathons for a certain problem that needs to be solved. And I feel like with a lot of hackathons, what needs to be done for future organizers is put a focus on the next step. It's awesome that all these great things are built, or at least like the baby spark of a solution has been built, the demo is there. But I feel like the part that's missing with hackathon organizers is that step where we say, hey, that was a good idea, this weekend was great, now you should talk to so-and-so because that's a really good solution, let's actually make it happen. And sometimes that only happens with the winners, which, granted, but there's always a lot of great ideas. And I feel like there should be a portion within hackathons, maybe at the end, where there's feedback, not only with the judges, whom are experts in their respective fields, but also with the fellow attendees. At a hackathon, you're so focused on what you're building. Sometimes when you're sitting there and everyone's giving their demo, it's just, I love that moment. That's my favorite moment of a hackathon. Sitting there after you've been running around, making sure everyone's taken care of, seeing everyone's projects. And when you sit there and you realize, my goodness, you built that in just a couple of hours, that's nuts. It's fantastic. You didn't win for whatever reason, or you did, but we should help you get to that next learning step. So hopefully that will be more of a focus in future hackathons.
That's great. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you guys for sharing your brilliance and joining us between the two barely visible ferns. We've had a blast and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
Bye.
Bye.